So it's Monday night, and we have a crew here in Calgary. And, we're so what are we doing? We're getting together to I'm going to say talk about, but explore. I think is even a better word, to explore the possibility of living a life of greater consciousness and or greater awareness. And a couple of great things happened today that pointed to that. One of them is I have a friend who's been searching for years to awaken, really, and he just discovered this book that kind of tied it all together for him. It's a book I love as well, that Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. And so my thing is that after spending like 40 years looking, it seems like only in the last little while did it all kind of come together. And some of what I would hope to share with everybody and share with you guys is that there's if we can see how our patterns, our behaviors, our beliefs keep us in a kind of a out of the moment, keep us in a place of striving. Then as we become aware that striving doesn't actually get us, the thing that we're thinking we're going to get doesn't actually happen, and I don't know about, well, I will. I think that for the most part, many of us have been told, bullshit. We grew up thinking that if we did certain things, we would be happy. And I remember thinking, well, it must happen later.
Yeah, the next thing.
Because somehow I always felt there was something missing. And so I thought I remember as a kid, if I moved to Alberta, or if I, lots of things. But the truth is that for me it was a little different because I didn't think I was going to live that long. But that was more because I was an addict and an alcoholic very, very young, and I didn't realize that I used drugs and alcohol as a kid to as part of my search, for what I felt was missing right from day one. And it seemed like I was that way always, and this sense of impending doom, this sense of loneliness, this sense of not fitting in, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I don't think not everybody's like that. I think lots of people have come from these beautiful homes, and they have I think lots of people are not quite as desperate as I was as a kid, and I started looking, like, what is going on here? And I felt that there was something missing. I didn't know till way, way later that that there was something in me that was missing, and I call it the God hole, yes, and like that. I realized that I was kind of like this spiritual being, whatever this means, but there was something missing. I didn't have this connection. It was in the connection. I didn't. Eckhart Tolle talks about it, the connection with now, the moment. Something had happened for me that was maybe different than lots of folks, and maybe it was because of the trauma in my home, or trauma that I had in youth. We're talking about trauma a lot lately, aren't we? In the world, it's the big thing. Something knocked me off, and that so I was disconnected from love, but I knew that it was that there was some, I knew it was there, I just didn't know how to get to reconnect, you know, and it's taken, years because, so I'm hoping to shorten your time.
Thank you for your search.
I'm hoping to shorten your time a little bit, you know, because it's like, I looked for it everywhere, you know. I would look for it in accomplishments. I would look for it in relationships. I really look for it a lot with women.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you know, maybe she's the one.
Do it too. Either way, Ben.
Maybe she's the one. And you know, and I found pieces of it with children when I had kids. It was like, wow, this is beautiful. But I soon realized that they weren't really mine. You know, they're not mine. They're theirs. You know, and so there's these few moments when they're little tiny things, when they feel like they're ours, you know, but then we have to let them go, and it's like, oh, all right. So, but there's an experience of love there that happens, which is pretty cool and unconditional, and so that's the purpose of what we're doing, and I see it now as the purpose of my life, is to carry a message that it is possible to have a conscious connection with this moment, with universal intelligence, with God, with, you know, now, you know, it is possible to have that connection and to, you know, recognize that we are one with that is possible, and to live that. And so, but I don't know of any way to point, nobody could point me to that. What happened was eventually I realized that all of the things that I thought it wasn't. And then as I realized that it wasn't those things, and I had a particular event that helped me to see it even more, you know, as I let go of relationship and I let go of business and I let go of you know, even where a place to live, and I didn't let go of my Harley, but I hung on to my motorcycle, but I let go of attachment to it. You know, and I you know, and even when I see it, this is kind of a joke, but you know, there was a time when you know, I thought it was whatever I was looking for was kind of in that, you know, this freedom of the road and on the motorcycle, and it is beautiful, but. In the last couple of years, if I go in the garage and it's sitting there, I'm like, wow, look at this. It's a motorcycle in the garage. And so I don't feel identified with it anymore. Do you know what I mean? I don't feel, so that's what we're doing. And I thought I was teaching meditation. And it kind of started that way. And we're going to meditate. But because meditation actually, I think, helps us to connect and to see ourselves and to watch our thoughts and to become more conscious in each moment. I didn't know what consciousness meant. I really didn't. You know, everybody was talking about being conscious, and I mean, I was hanging with the conscious community, and but I didn't realize that there's a level of consciousness of me seeing me in each moment that I didn't understand. I didn't know what they meant, and now I do, and now it means that I see when I'm out of it, which is most of the time. Seems like I'm, you know, but I have awareness of that, and quicker to come back in, and to not be in where I go when I'm not conscious. Usually is into some form of my addiction, and you know, I don't use drugs or alcohol anymore, but there's lots of other things. I'm addicted to ideas, concepts. I'm, you know, addicted to getting my way, right?
Sugar?
I'm addicted. Oh yes, I am. Okay, I have a little bit of a sugar addiction, and I didn't know that was public knowledge, but
We had this conversation.
we ice cream the other night. I was, you know, probably not as conscious as I could be. I was feeling something. Sometimes I don't like to feel things, right?
Who does?
Yeah, and I got up and went to the grocery store and bought a whole tub of Haagen-Dazs coffee ice cream, and consciously kind of ate it. and
Consciously ate the whole thing.
the whole thing. Sometimes I do that, and I say, well, I'm not going to eat the whole thing, even after I've opened it up. Did you ever do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not going to eat the whole thing, and anyway, so I didn't beat myself up over it. So that's the whole deal. Let's be conscious. How do we be conscious? Well, we're going to talk tonight a bit about some of the things that that what I think are the things that we're not conscious around. We talked the first week about complaint. We went really deep into complaint. And so imagine, the great thing around complaint is to actually watch yourself for one day, just one day, and every time that you complain, or that just be totally conscious and present to each time we complain. And also, don't beat yourself up about it. And we're complaining beings. For most of us are deep in complaint about everything, and about our physical bodies, right? About our relationships, bitch doesn't love me, whatever. Because many of us are in relationships trying to get something, trying to be, have somebody support us. If she'd only support me, I'd be a better man, right? Or somebody to love us because we haven't taken the time to even get to know ourselves and love ourselves. So it's easy to complain about a relationship because there's a lot of expectations there. And what else do we complain about? Money. Oh, yes, we complain about money.
Or lack of. I don't complain about money.
Yeah, so money's one, isn't it? And
We can complain about the things that we think, anything that bothers us.
so we complain about our thoughts.
Complain about complaining, yeah.
Yes. So, sure, we get angry, and then later we feel guilt and shame. That's like a form of complaint, isn't it?
Co-workers, people that are around us.
Co-workers, if you're lucky enough to have a job.
The state of the union, how about this government?
That's right.
Yeah.
The sad state of the nation. Isn't that funny? The sad state of the nation. There it is. That's that's a story of the retired businessman, the Florida Sunshine, and complaining about the sad state of the nation. What an example! It's right there, isn't it?
Right.
And where some of us are in a 12-step program, and there's a sentence in the book that says, that describes us as complainers. And I'd never quite seen it, but it's right there. And so complaint, though, takes us out of the moment. We've talked about that. And practice, if you want to play with complaint, just get a book and write down, throughout the whole day, how many times you catch yourself complaining. Yeah. And complaint is telling the universe that it's not doing a good job. Complaint is saying to God that it's not,
It brings more of that.
and it brings more of what we complain about. It's like, isn't that interesting? I mean, all these people teaching us how to manifest, right? And we just bitching all the time.
Manifesting the bitch.
Yes, yeah. So complaint is one. The other thing that we talked about last week was about story making. So the incessant. I was going to say incest. Having trouble getting the right word out. Yeah, thank you. Incessant.
Incessant, yeah.
Yeah, so it just doesn't go away, this idea that we have to understand everything. And if we don't understand, we make up a story. We just, and so the story that we've made up about our lives and about everything is a story from our belief systems, colored by our story. So if we feel like a victim, we have a story, a victim story, then that colors everything in our life. If somebody's late, it's against us.
Yeah.
If somebody's early, they're trying to make us look bad
Yeah.
because we're late.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Personal.
it's always about us, and it's always wrong.
Yeah.
And you know, if we're you know, if we're in a victim place in our life, but if we're complaining and then we're making up stories, and then often we are kind of in a victim place, you know, and we actually tell the story. I'd be successful if it weren't for whatever, and then we color everything that way, you know, damn partners I have in business, you know, and all kinds of things, and so if we don't become aware of the storytelling that we do, then it can't possibly change. And there's nothing to do except become aware. You know, and if our awareness brings consciousness to it. I like to think of it as it's over here, and when we bring our gaze there, where the light shines, whatever it is that we're shining the light on, evaporates because it doesn't like the light. So the stories we make up about everything, our health, our age, as I'm getting, you know, at an age in my body, well, that could be the story. That could be the story. But the story I hear is you ain't what you used to be. Yeah, it takes a lot longer to heal when you're your age. So there's a consistent cultural story about age, and it isn't always the wise elder story. It's the you know, better make good use of your time. You don't have much left story, you know, and all of that. So we have to kind of almost guard ourselves in a way around the community story or the story around us, you know, and there's so many stories. Men can't be trusted story. That's right. And not good enough stories. And so we have these things that are in our psyche, and so how do we have a psychic change? You know, well, we become aware that they're there. We become aware that they're there, that we're complainers and that we make up bullshit stories. And you know, and those stories are often driven by selfishness and fear. So we can't change them, though. Just be aware of them, and as we're aware of them, they melt, and we can change our direction in a sense. We can decide that we're going to make a difference, and we're going to help people. We're going to be of service. We're going to, you know, that we can reach out to do those things that we'd like to do. I mean, everybody wants to. I think everybody, when you say what's your purpose in life? Everybody say, well, to help people. You know, it doesn't mean that they're living it or doing it, but I think everybody feels that way. You know, universally. You know, I think at the root of every person, there's that spot. Everybody. I think everybody, you know, even if they're driven by terrible fear and they've done, you know, unless they're psychotic. Well, we're all a little neurotic, but anyway, you know, I mean, yes, maybe not, but everybody that's watching this.
Yeah, I think so.
Everybody that's going to watch this has at the root of their life this desire to be helpful, and as that becomes our focus in life, and we see where story has kept us from doing that, we see where complaining has kept us from doing that, you know, we can move into that. And the other thing is that if we're focused on being present, and if you really believe that this idea of connection, you know, sometimes I call it God, I call it Father, I call it employer, I call it, you know, yes, my boss.
Yeah, nice.
Yes. Sometimes, you know, I love Eckhart Tolle's description of the power of now. You know, now is where we meet this maker. And what I've seen and what I've read and what is that as we live more in this moment, we lift up. We just vibrate higher. We are more love as we live in love. You know, and if love is our our idea of what would love do. If love is, as we look towards that light, we move up to the light. So there's magic in it. FM, friggin' magic. There's
Freaking magic. I
yeah.
love it.
And there's magic in it, and I can't explain it, but it works, as we move towards it, and I think everybody here, because I know almost everybody, has from my experience wants to be able to live in that light, to live in that love, to be, that person who's had that amazing psychic change from what's in it for me to how can I serve. So that process is part of the process we're talking about. And meditation is part of that. I know, I've been saying these are meditation events. So we're going to, in a minute, this is just kind of a rehash, all for you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Yes,
Love you.
so we're going to meditate for a couple of minutes. And then we're going to talk about the topic for tonight, which is attachment. And then we'll meditate a little bit after that, and then we'll be done. And so, if you're watching, I'd love it if you stay with us and find a kind of a safe spot to sit. And we're going to meditate for about 10 minutes. And James keeps the timer for us. And he'll we'll start with the gong, and then we'll finish with the gong. And are you definitely a meditator?
She's going to meditate, and then I told her she could go on her iPad after she meditates, so she doesn't get too antsy.
Okay, yeah,
It's a good deal, right?
hopefully the sound is down. But you know what? The most beautiful thing about meditation is being able to meditate even on a busy New York corner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We do a 1-minute timer, like a
Yeah.
salt or sand through the hourglass thing
you and
with her.
yeah.
Yeah.
How old is she?
She's 8.
8. All 8-year-olds were meditating. Hey, beautiful.
Yeah. Imagine the world, right?
Yes, yeah. So we're going to sit for a little bit, and if there is, wherever you are, if there's noise, just include it. Just sit and include it. It doesn't. We don't have to be quiet. It's a kind of a bullshit story. If somebody's been telling you that you can't meditate because your mind is too busy, I've had so many people say, "Well, I can't meditate. My mind doesn't stop." Well, of course it doesn't stop. Just watch it. Just watch the mind, and recognize how beautiful the mind is. Your mind is a tool, and it serves us. And somehow, it kind of became the boss. But this process that we're talking about shifts the context, and we get a new boss. But the mind is still an amazing tool. We need it. We love it. So when we start to meditate, just tell your mind that it's safe. And we're just going to take a few minutes, and then we'll get back. Can we do 10 minutes, James? We're just going to do 10 minutes, and anytime's everybody ready? We'll just drop in, and we go. When we start to meditate, in the beginning, how do we get to this spot in this moment? One of the methods, it's ancient, is through the breath. And we take a deep breath in. Breath brings us into the mind, into the moment. And breath brings us into our body. We're focused on our breath. We're here now. And just watch as we're sitting. No matter what the mind says, we're just going to take this minute for ourselves. And as we watch the mind, maybe say, "Oh my gosh, I don't have time for this." Just recognize it. Sometimes it's a little scared. Just tell it everything's going to be fine. Sometimes we can talk to the mind like it's a child. Just say, "It's okay. We love you." And it'll start to slow down, and in time, if we do this practice, meditation, The mind will get used to it. The mind will actually crave it because it's a break. Poor mind's been very busy, always looking out for us, especially if it feels we're in a dangerous world. We're not in a beautiful world. As we breathe in, just feel into your body. Recognize how fortunate we are to have this vehicle to live in. Just feel everything in it. Because not only are we not our mind, but we're not our body either. The body is a tool to look after us. Just be conscious of our thoughts, conscious of our body, and be here in our breath. when you're ready. Wow.
Amazing how fast it goes.
Wow. Wow. That was anybody go deep? Yeah. 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 It's great. Are you a meditator? Awesome. That's so fun. Wow. I dropped into a whole other dimension. So I have to come back.
Just have to go in. We'll give you a sec.
Yeah. Nice. So I thought hopefully I'm clear that the whole idea of looking at these patterns or beliefs and or behaviors is so that we can become conscious, and with our consciousness move to a higher vibration. And if any of you have read Dr. David Hawkins, Hawkins built a scale. He used kinesiology and muscle testing and his first book was called Power versus Force, and Hawkins in his scale measures vibration and emotional vibration. So his scale is kind of 0 to 1,000, and 1,000 was like Christ consciousness. It was the highest, and that 540 in the middle was like unconditional love, and I think we all talk about unconditional love, and it would be, wow, wouldn't that be nice, and then as we move down a little bit at 200 was kind of the crossover line at courage and willingness, and below that were things like guilt and shame and fear and anger and apathy and so we kind of what we're hoping to do is to have our vibration to be in a vibration of optimally, how do you say that? Optimally, you're good with words. Optimally, to be, an unconditional love. Wouldn't that be amazing? Mm-hmm. But even acceptance is in like the 300s. Just living in acceptance in each moment would be awesome. And so if we become aware of the things, and complaint would be, like below 200. Victim stories would be, below 200, and we have very little power in the below 200s. We're powerless there, and we get more power, if you will, to create in our lives and in our community as we move into acceptance and gratitude and unconditional love. So that's, we know what powerlessness looks like, don't we?
Uh-huh.
So we'd like to live in a state of, connected to power. So we're going to look at another thing that I call, well, I don't call it, everybody calls it attachment, and it's kind of around, we can become attached to ideas, and fervently, is that right? Fervently attached to ideas. Like, we'll fight for them, we'll kill for them, we'll go to war for them, right? But some of the ideas that we get attached to are, ideas about success, maybe, or about race, around with judgments, and I think they're all kind of mixed together. This attachment thing has judgment around it. And somebody talked to me earlier tonight about, made a statement, and she said, "Gee, that was kind of racist." And I didn't see it that way. I didn't say something that was racist, but she thought she did, but it was more of a, it was an attachment to the way things should be, right? And so we're often caught in attachments to the way things should be, aren't we? And everybody knows that it should be this way, but if we can become aware of those attachments, then I believe that life can unfold in its perfection. What happens for me is I want to fucking control everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm attached to things unfolding a certain way sometimes. Especially in business. I have a long history of wanting it my way. and actually working so hard to make it my way, and instead of trusting, that the life will unfold as it's supposed to in business or in, but for me, I remember some years in business where I put my identity, into whether we had a certain level of success or not. And my, status and my, energy was all into this attachment to looking a certain way and having an image. And that image, the attachment to that image kept me from being me. Because I would be who I thought I was supposed to be, or who I thought you wanted me to be. Does anybody relate to any of this?
Oh yeah, it was like the happy me. Like if I wasn't the happy me, I couldn't even be seen because everybody expected me to be the happy, outgoing me, and I was like.
So just stop that.
Yeah, just stop that.
But it's not so easy, is it?
No.
No, because where did it start? Who knows where it started? When we were children and we got this idea that I wasn't going to be somebody until I had whatever, or I had to be like this to be loved.
To be accepted,
And so we have an attachment to that. And when we're not like that, then we feel incomplete, or we feel not good enough. I don't know whether not good enough came before or after, but they seem to go hand in hand, don't they? So attachment to all kinds of things. What are some of the things that we're attached to?
I think the idea of being attached to an ego or a persona.
Okay.
Persona for sure.
Like, I just think you're cool. Well, thank you. Yeah, but I can actually put, if my attachment to how you should be, I can put on you.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And if I'm conscious enough to just actually be there, compassionately loving you or everybody as they are, then then there's freedom in that, isn't there? And we feel accepted when we're around people who love us just the way we are, and
they say in the first beginning of our life, like, because that's why we have such a default behavior from what we were in children, because they say we form our being based on how others see us. So it's almost like we become what's expected of us in a way.
So the possibility to be conscious of how we are acting, and we even got told to act a certain way. We're all great actors.
Yeah, we are.
and we're
Society says.
attached to acting out a certain role. So that's interesting. So who's there?
Yeah, who we really are. Who are we?
Yeah.
So I've been there. We're talking about the way society seems to assign us certain personas or roles we should play in life.
Mhm.
Right, so I think it since my 20s, about 10 years, I kind of grasped onto the idea that, well, I keep getting accused of doing this stuff no matter what I actually am doing. So I might as well just become the person that everybody thinks that I am. You know, to start acting out in some criminal ways, right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
in there, and I decided that that's not really what I am. I felt bad about what I was doing, you know, deep down the inside.
So you were filling a role that you thought others had already pigeonholed you for,
Yeah.
and after a while of doing that, you know,
Just when I guess my moral fiber.
you realized that that wasn't who you are, and now you've become.
Now I just sit here and it's the person that I'm supposed to be. All I can do is be, right?
Yeah.
You know, just choose not to do the things that I know bother me.
So attachment. What other things are we attached to?
Things, relationships, how it's supposed to work out. You are mine, possessiveness.
So just get rid of all that.
Yeah, easier said than done, right? I'm working on it.
So it's interesting that at one level the idea is just that, you know, that we can somehow manage to change it. And for many of us in this room actually have recognized that we can't manage to change it, that we're unable to manage to change it. And many people spend their whole lives thinking their ego tells them that they can. And so they become attached to the idea of change. And what I'm saying tonight is that we become aware of our attachments. We become aware of, and mostly we're talking about selfish attachments. We're talking about wanting things our way, trying to fit in, trying to be good, but all so that we can get something. If we become aware of those attachments, and that's called consciousness. We become conscious, and what doesn't need to be there will move, will evaporate, will change, and we move towards a higher vibration through awareness. And can we be attached to fear?
Yeah.
I think so. Fear is a great example.
I think we can become attached to suffering too.
Yes, drama.
Yeah.
One drama to another. I used to say I had the Midas touch. Everything I touched turned to shit. Yeah. You know, it just seemed to be that way.
And we live in those stories, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, fear for me is a great example of a way of being that I could not manage. I absolutely could not manage. I would try to talk myself out of fear, I would say, and still can sometimes find myself trying to manage fear. That if I bring consciousness to fear, if I say, oh look, there's fear, and I ask the moment, or God, or universal intelligence to remove, you know, oh, look, I'm in fear. But my ego wants to think my way out of fear. You know, my ego says, David, what are you doing? That's a silly thing to be, you know, I'm trying to talk myself out of it. Anybody ever done that?
Yeah.
You know, talking myself out of fear. And instead of surrendering, becoming aware, conscious of the fear, and letting it go. Oh. Because in this moment, there's never anything really to be afraid of. You know, I mean, that maybe if there's an earthquake happening and the building's shaking, we take action, you know, You didn't.
And even the fear, like it's okay to have that fear. Like I feel like for me, when I can move through it is when I can say, "Oh, this scares me." Like my daughter, when she was little, she performed the first time, and she's like, "I'm so scared." When we talk about fear, we go somewhere and she'd be shy, and she's like, "I'm scared." And then we talk about being afraid, and then when you can admit it and share it, it's almost like it dissipates it.
Well, exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly.
the awareness.
Because what we're bringing into that is love.
Yeah, yeah, love the fear.
Yeah.
It's okay to fear.
Yeah, that's different than management.
Yeah, it's different than management because management tries to control it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Management has a different context
Very
than loving.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
fell into like a ton of fear on Thursday night. I was like just so overwhelmed with everything. I was like, oh my God. Like, and all this fear came up, and then within 10 minutes it just subsided. It just like kind of came in and then went out because I would like recognize, I was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Some things that we're attached to are very subtle, aren't they? You know, you and I were talking, James and I were talking about loneliness. You know, this idea that's just a very subtle feeling. You know, and I don't know if I could say that I'm attached to that, but sometimes I don't find it very comfortable when that comes up. You know, and I think we all have it.
Yeah.
But for me, that's when I eat ice cream.
Yeah, me too, to fill the void. Instead of a cuddle, I get some ice cream.
Right. Well, cuddles would be fine too. But the trick is, though, I believe is through consciousness. So whatever it is we're attached to, this week, what I suggest we do is make a list. List of the things that we're attached to, you know, and things that we're afraid to lose. That's an attachment. We're afraid to lose something. Things that we're afraid to not get.
Or things that we want to get.
Or,
That's an
yes,
attachment to that.
yeah, things that we want to get are attachments. You know, have you ever been in a relationship and you were afraid, you know, to let them go?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you know, and why were we afraid?
To be alone?
We didn't want to be alone. Yeah, God bless being alone, honestly. So, but that's an attachment, you know. So it's a whole different way of being with somebody. But what's neat, though, is when we bring honesty into that situation. Oh, by the way, I just realized I'm still here because I'm afraid to be alone. It can shift the whole energy.
Yeah.
It can shift the whole, it's like, oh, well, that was really honest. And then it's like, but actually in this moment I totally love you, you know, because we have a shift, and it's the dishonesty sometimes that, you know, that,
Because admitting it's embarrassing in a way.
well, yes, I mean, it's vulnerable.
Yeah, it's very vulnerable.
Be vulnerable. How honest,
And you're all fine.
how honest do you want to be? My teacher that I was with for years and years, Paul Lowe, used to say, how honest do you want to be, you know, in this moment? And we used to practice a thing called inner dialogue.
Called which?
Inner dialogue. And inner dialogue was that we would be with somebody and just say what was happening in each moment. I'm feeling this, I'm thinking this, you know, and be there as honestly as possible in each moment with your partner. But normally we screen all of our thoughts. So we're attached to looking good,
We are.
right? We want to look good. So we screen all of our thoughts, or we say the things we think we need to say to get the results we think we want to have. And I so get that my results from my intellect or my ego are so small in comparison to the results that life can have in our full potential when we're connected, when we're practicing consciousness, when we're being honest. Honest.
We can connect in that, right? We can see the human in each other.
Honesty is, well, again, not to get anything,
Yeah.
okay? Not to get anything, but just to be there with in an honest moment. James and I had one last night. And he asked me about something that I was doing, and I just said, "Oh wow, yes, I am." And it was, and the thing kind of evaporated. It was like, oh, it took.
My love didn't change.
It,
For you.
Aw, you guys are beautiful.
And that's how, in any relationship, if we're honest, the love shouldn't shift.
Yeah, when it's a true relationship.
yeah, well, yeah, and it exactly. You know, it's interesting when you say that because James and I live together without benefits, and and Nathaniel's moving in as well, and yeah, it's a guy's house. It really is. It's fun, and we have
another potluck.
next Sunday.
Oh yay!
Yes, we keep meaning to tell everybody, but anyway, I digress. Yes. So next Sunday,
All your 5,000 followers.
yeah, we're having what day is that?
The 24th.
Yes, we're having a potluck that day, and then we're going to have one on the 15th of December.
Oh yay!
Yeah, we'll get that out. Yeah, will you be in town?
No, it's Constellations. Kylie's thing.
Oh, on Sunday?
We have a Christmas one for us orphans.
Well, that is Christmas.
The 15th is Christmas for you?
No, but it's pretty close. My son's getting married around Christmas, and there's going to be a lot of family stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and my daughter's coming, and going to be a lot of hanging out. So
Can you refocus?
oh yeah, so right.
Okay. See, that's the benefit you got.
Yeah. So attachment. I think we can all agree that in theory that becoming aware of attachments and bringing the consciousness of the moment, love and light, to that moment will give us freedom from that attachment. And that the beautiful thing that I think is needed to do that is kind of another belief in a way that life will unfold for us in an even a more amazing way than we could imagine with our attachment. If we're living, that's the only road to our full potential, is through that surrender. There just isn't. There's no fucking way we can make it any better. You know, than to if we become conscious of, oh, I'm trying to run things here. You know, now, that doesn't mean that if you've made a commitment to show up for work that you don't show up for work. You know, because it's not about running from feelings. You know, I didn't feel like it. It's about really discerning and having a conscious connection so that we can see, you know, where we're attached to and running the show.
It's almost like allowing the flow.
It is allowing the flow. Well, we don't even have to allow the flow. We just have to get out of the way. The flow is happening.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just that we're not on the train. We take ourselves off the train. Sometimes I'll say to folks, you know, because I like analogies, or like, you know, painting pictures, that we're at the banquet table, and it's just loaded with all the most amazing goodies that are possible, you know, and all the food we should never eat. It's all there. It's just this banquet table is so full, the banquet table of life, and we're eating off the floor.
Yeah.
You know, because we're trying to run the show, and we're attached, and we're attached mostly out of fear, mostly out of wanting and desire, and you know, desperately trying to get our way, because mind, ego, has been conditioned to believe that life is not safe, and that we have to be careful, be careful. You know, we've been told our whole lives, be careful. Can't trust strangers. You know,
So
can't.
don't tell my kids.
I grew up in a family where the story was that men couldn't be trusted. And I just happened to be one of them.
Oh, great.
And so it's been a lifelong, actually, letting go of that. And I'm still in this process of letting go of this conditioning that my mother and my grandmother and my sister, you know, really hammered home that men couldn't be trusted. And so that was, you know, a conditioned belief system that I didn't even see, really. I just spent my whole life trying to prove it wasn't true. And in my proving or trying to prove it wasn't true, I couldn't be real.
Or trust yourself.
Or trust myself, yeah. And so that's you know, yeah, it is big. And how many of those stories do we have? Do we all have that we bought, you know, that were told to us, and that we're attached to, you know, and that weren't true, you know, because if we're living in the moment, we're living in love. We're living in love. What do we have? We have love. We have, you know, we're showing up with love. There's nothing needed. Nothing's missing. So that's the possibility, and it's in almost, as far as I can tell, because I spent a lot of years searching. It's in all the spiritual teachings. At the core is this idea of love, this idea of no tomorrow.
Yeah, I did a lot of psychedelics to come up with that answer all the time. Sorry, it's true.
This idea of no tomorrow, you know, let tomorrow take care of itself. The lilies of the field.
Yeah.
Have no fear, no worries. And so all the teachings, the Buddhist teachings, the Christian teachings at their core, you know, are beautiful for many of us in the 12-step world. You know, it really is a be here now in love program. And we, you know, our whole life goes from fear and what's in it for me, the psychic change, to, you know, how can I serve? How can I serve? And in each moment, being in service, in love, just lifts us up and lifts the whole, everybody around us up. But consciousness is the key. So this week, write down some of the times, the things that, the little attachments that we have, and I think that repetition is really important. I don't imagine that if I'm so fortunate to get to be able to serve this way for the next 20 years, that basically we're going to be saying the same thing.
That's how we learn through repetition. Alan Watts says we need to hear something 10 times before we get it.
And basically, like Teresa says, we're going to hear the same thing. And most of all of us have heard this before. This isn't new. You know,
Reminding us is good.
this is that's right. This isn't new. So, but I'm just really grateful to be able to share and to, you know, to talk about these things and to be publicly speaking about them. And so if you agree, thank you. If you don't agree, thank you.
Because you're not attached.
It's okay. And whatever, love that, you know, you watch this and spend the time with us, and thank you guys for being here. We're going to finish tonight with a meditation, and because meditating actually has it is the road to awakening. It is the road to awakening. Having a practice, you know, prayer and meditation practice, having a time that we spend. Could you imagine if our life was a life of service and we made a commitment to a new employer and we never checked in? And we, you know, if we're not checking in, then it's hard to be on the beam, you know, so I believe meditation's a big part of that, of me checking in, And I think having I hesitate to because there's attachment around the idea of spirituality, but let's imagine that this is a spiritual path. And I don't want to even call it that because it limits it in some way. But this path of being in love in each moment and so having somebody or being able to be with the masters is so available to us now, whether it's Eckhart Tolle or Dr. David Hawkins, or the Bhagavad Gita, which is an amazing book from the Hindu teachings. There's just so much available for us now to be in that higher vibration. Hawkins says that the Bhagavad Gita, the one I like it was Stephen Mitchell. He did a translation. It's amazing. Hawkins says that book vibrates in the 900s. Now, Christ consciousness is 1,000. So you can sleep with that book. And the 12-step world, according to Hawkins, when he measured vibration, the two spiritual teachings that are vibrating at the very highest on the planet were Tibetan Buddhism and the 12 steps of AA, CA, NA, and they both vibrated unconditional love at 540. And so those teachings are the simplest, most inclusive. Both of those teachings are the simplest, most inclusive teachings that can help us to lift up. So I encourage you to find your way to either literally to a 12-step program, or because there's lots of them, Emotions Anonymous and Overeaters Anonymous and Sex and Love Anonymous, and I mean it just goes on and on and on. And gamblers and alcoholics and CA. Yeah. Oh, there's like 120 programs, I think, that are using those steps to lift the vibration of the whole planet. It's amazing. And so if you're watching this and you're wondering, where do I go? How do I get connected with a community? We have a community, and you're welcome to do that and be connected with us. And we have a page. Actually, we have a group that we're going to probably. It's called it's the meditation one, Valley and Beyond meditation. Yeah, Project Awakening one. Yes, we have a page. Actually, I'll put the link on here. And you can join us in that group. And we're going to make it a group where we can talk about this kind of stuff and suggest books and ask questions and that kind of stuff, and put all of our videos on it and all of that. And, but find a community that has consciousness as a high value, and surround yourself with people who are interested in not running the show. They're interested in letting their higher power, God as they understand them, the power of now, in universal intelligence, whatever it is, the quantum field, because quantum physics is kind of taking spirituality and laid it out so we can see it. We can see it. Joe Dispenza is talking about it a lot, and Joe's doing some amazing stuff. So there's lots and lots around, and I'm available also for privates if you want to come and just sit down and talk, and there's a possibility I can help you see a pattern or see what's happening in your life, and we can do that together. So I'm available for those as well. And we've got another 4 sessions here, because this was 7 sessions we were going to do. Anyway, that's my little pitch for for us and for you, for how do we get connected. There's so much available for us out there today. The world is changing. There's an awakening happening. Yeah, there really is an awakening happening. And, it's not just about brown rice.
Brown rice. Brown rice.
Well, all my hippie friends, eh? And, conscious eating is important.
Because the evolution starts in the gut.
Yes, that's right. Conscious eating is important, but it's conscious everything. Yeah, it's conscious everything, and we can't judge. I encourage you not to judge others for where they're at in their journey. Everybody is where they need to be, you know. And I watched. I've got a couple of quick stories. I watched the other day. I watched the Dalai Lama, a little video. The Dalai Lama talking to this young girl, and she'd come to him. She had a book, and she was showing him the book, and she was asking about, you know, how she could make a difference. And she was about 12, you know, and it was a very close video, and it was just so clear that he was just loving her. You know, he's such a gentle man. I got to spend time with him in his temple in India and be in his presence, and well, just me and 2,000 or 3,000 other people, but still.
Still.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yes, and I did a 3-day thing. Yes, and he just said, "Oh, from the head to the heart," and he kept touching her heart, you know, from the head to the heart, you know, and so with the heart is this idea of unconditional love, you know, and just allowing, you know, because part of our attachment is around how other people should act, you know, and how other people should be, and even our partners, you know, and our roommates, right? Yeah, and so, you know, if we're there with love, it's it kind of. I just want to tell this quick story, because it was such a profound example. I had a friend, a lady called me today who I didn't know, but was referred to me to call me, and she was talking to me, asked me if I could help her husband, who recently lost his job at a big oil company, and it had really taken him out, and he'd gone into depression, and he's gone into drinking and all of the things, and that's an area where I do a lot of work, is helping with addictions and stuff like that, and she just plainly said his whole life was around what he did, his accomplishments, and so there was no foundation.
So what now?
And so that's happening a lot. Of course, the blessing is in this city, it's amazing growth will come from this. You know, amazing growth will come. And for him, I hope. I pray, I hope to meet with him soon. But it's just, that can happen when we're too attached, when we're attached to our accomplishments, to our education, to our titles, to the numbers before our name. You know, a doctor, or MBA, or a CA, or whatever. Those things don't carry us. The sand beneath our building, not the rock. And it's funny, I get a kick out when I quote scripture. But anyway, so just remember that, you know, no matter where we're at, that having that car, you know, or the new car, or the new, whatever the things we have, you know, boasting about our travel, or you know, or how much time we spend at the gym, look, you know, you know, it's shallow. You know, nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. Just doesn't have it you know, it won't hold when things shift, you know, and what holds is being conscious and being connected in this moment.
And staying calm, and that's how we get through this turmoil right now.
And that's management.
That's management.
Yes, but management doesn't work. It really doesn't, Teresa. Just hear me.
But like, I'm just saying, management is finding the calm within the storm. Like,
Yes.
in a different way to look at it. I'm not saying like.
Well, and I'm actually, and I think that it can be cliche, and forgive me, but watch, because it's really, we can get caught in it, and it's like, it's doing what you said, and
Or it's being. I think it's a being. I think when you can drop into being calm amongst a crazy situation, that's a state of being in the present.
Okay.
I think. I don't know. It's a matter of semantics, really.
Well, you opened it up. Let's talk about it.
You know what I
You
mean?
know.
Like, I watched that The Sixth Son video, and
Yeah.
they talk about the Hopi prophecy, and here we are in a crazy time. We're in the awakening. There's a lot of fear that's going to come up. And so, in order for us to rise above that is to be in the love. Be
Yes.
in the love.
Yeah.
Not
Le-
do the love.
Well, let's imagine, just for a second, because, story comes in books. Often the story of prophecies they may or may not be true. In this moment, though, because each we're only in the moment. We cannot be out of the moment. There's only this moment. And so if we're here, there is no story, there is no ascension, it's only this moment now. And what happens with the ego and the mind is it wants to live in story. It wants to be in, and even when I say there's a shift happening, is part of me being in story, because my ego does the same thing,
I'm a bit attached to that. We want a better world, right?
Well, or do we?
I do.
But isn't it perfect now?
You're right. Yeah. Okay.
Well, imagine in 20 years, there'll still be the same complaints.
I don't know. I think they'll shift. We don't cut each other's heads off anymore. There's no guillotine entertainment like we have grown. We have become more civilized.
Well, there is some that would disagree.
Yeah, true. Of course, someone will always disagree.
Well, of course, there's some that would disagree. There's slavery still happens all over the world, in our country. And so there's some that would disagree. But if we go into that, we're into the world of form, and we're trying to manage, because if we're actually conscious, being as conscious as possible, and asking to be shown in each moment how we can serve, then we're, if there is a change happening, it's not really our business. We're part of it, so yeah. Where was I?
Sorry.
It's all right. It's great. It's great. You bring lots of, you bring lots. I think that for most of my life, I've lived in that place of thinking, and imagining that the story was the real. And discovering that the story kept me out of the real. Anyway, that's pretty deep, isn't it?
The journey from the head to the heart.
It's the trying to get somewhere,
Yeah.
and there is nowhere to be.
There's nowhere to be. That's right.
And once we can recognize that and be in the moment, we can find all the blessings in this moment. We can create all the things that we need in this moment.
Well, there is no creating if we're in the
But we
moment.
can
It
be.
is
But that,
created.
yeah,
Yes.
it's creating.
Yeah.
It's creation.
It's interesting how cliches actually can take us out of the moment. In a way they calm us. It's like talking to a child. There, it's going to be okay. And so we get calm. But it takes courage, somewhat. It takes lots of courage to be faith and to be in the moment, to be here now, to look at our conditioned beliefs. And it takes also being with people who are doing that, and being open to receiving feedback. Isn't it? And so yeah, and I think you're open to that.
Working on my humility.
Right. So let's meditate for a few more minutes. We're kind of at the end. I have no idea what time it is. Oh,
It's an hour ahead.
so what time is it? 10 to 8?
It's 8:30.
Oh, 8:30? Oh my gosh.
It's over, but we love you. We love it. We don't mind.
Oh, it was great. So consciousness, you guys.
Yeah, here we go.
Here we go. So we're going to let's meditate for 10 minutes again. And, thank you guys. We do this, when we're together like this, because, there's an energy that happens when we meditate as a group, you know, and it's so just drop into it and see if you can feel what's happening in you know, in the group. And sometimes when your eyes are closed and you're watching the mind, just watch it, and you know, if it gets really crazy, you know, like, oh shit, it's 8:30, I've got to be whatever, right? You know, the crazy thoughts that happen, you know, who is this guy, whatever. Just, you know, just see if we can just stay with it, you know, and say, it's okay to talk to the mind. And say, it's okay, you know, like a child. Just say, it's okay, we're safe. And see if you can feel the energy of the group. And if you're out there meditating with us, you know, take 10 minutes, find a safe space just to sit. And it doesn't matter what's going on around you. You could be literally sitting in, you know, in the middle of your house with your kids running all around. Just drop in. And, you know, you can be in a state of meditation and still semi-conscious of what's happening around you, you know, and then come out when needed. So this is a practice. And yeah, I'm honored to be part of yours. Truly. So are we ready, James? Here we go. Wow. Just use the breath again. Breath is now. Breath brings us clearly into the moment. And now is where all the action is. Everything else is illusion. Breath is the doorway to now. Thank you. Just want a couple of things if you're still with us. You can follow us on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. I love that if you did.
What's it called?
It's called, oh, you're so good looking after me. Tell them.
Yeah, tell them.
Tell them. What's it called? It's called Valley and Beyond, isn't it? Yeah, Project Awakening. And we're also on Instagram and all of those things. So follow us if you'd like. And oh, I just had a thought. I'm just going to put it out there. You know, we have a website, valleyandbeyond.ca, and we need some help with that stuff, copy, and just some fiddling around with WordPress or some so if anybody watches this and has, wants to help out a bit, we need some help with some of that, some work around social media and IT and that kind of thing. So, and if I don't ask.
It's Thursday's Ramadas, dude.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Yes. Wow, this is late in the game, but I just want to remember Thursday night. This Thursday night, there's a movie at the Grand called Becoming Nobody. It's so going to be so cool. It really is. And so Becoming Nobody, it's about the life of Ram Dass. And there's a bunch of us going. Some of us are going to go a little early and have some food with at the Workshop restaurant, which belongs to a friend of ours, Kenny. And so we're going to go to Kenny's restaurant and have a bite to eat. And so Thursday night, this Thursday night, like the 21st. So come and join us. And it's a one-time showing. The movie's just come out recently. It's a one-time showing in Calgary. And to go see it on the big screen, this will be the only chance you'll ever have to see this on the big screen. And Ram Dass's teachings are fabulous. And really he's saying the same thing. Be here now.
Be here now.
Be nobody. Becoming nobody is letting go of all of our conditioned beliefs and our ideas and being in the flow. And so I'm really excited about that movie. And
What time's the movie?
movies are like 7:30. 7:30. So some of us are going to go to the restaurant a little earlier, like 6:30, and hang out there and have some appies or whatever. And okay. Love you guys. I think that's it. It's just been great. See you next week. We're here. There's quite a bit of room if you want to drop in on Monday night. And if money is a problem, we've been collecting $15, but that just helps to pay the rent here. But don't let that be a barrier. Seriously.
The Scarborough United Church.
Scarborough United Church. Your mind just.
Bring it back.
You do. Teresa's here, and she just is great. She is amazing. So yeah, next Monday night, come visit us. Oh, Sunday, if you're in town, we're gonna have a potluck at the house. There's a bunch of us will get together, and it's like-minded people. It's fun to be together with people that are, striving to be more conscious. And if you're with somebody and they're being really unconscious, you can say, "Do you mind can I share?" And ask for an opening, and if it's there, be in tune. If it's there, offer. See, that maybe if somebody's in a story or a conditioned belief, just offer. And unless it's with me, and you can do that anytime. Love you guys. Thanks so much. Talk soon.